Key comics for the non-collector. Hi, welcome to Garage Geek. Today we're going to look at an iconic issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. The reason that I'm doing this is that I have a lot of viewers who are not into comics. So one reason I picked this issue is not only because it's iconic, but because it is available right now for $4 at all comic shops. If you are interested in what I show you today, you don't have to break the bank to go ahead and start a collection. This is a key issue. Now, before we jump into this, the art is so crisp and colorful here. I want to show you, number one, the difference of buying an old comic. As a collector, I want to have the original issue. Compare the reading experience from that to that. There's no comparison. Reading it in this format is such a better experience. So I long since have known that reprints try to have more ad pages than the original comics. I started comparing just to see how many pages would be left out, and I was shocked. They're not pages that are left out. So if you look at page 5 of this comic, you're going to see that there's a drastic difference. The two top panels are the same, but this whole big square is missing from the reprint. And they took what was on this page and they slid it into there, but they also left out the middle panel. In the reprint comic, this whole page is gone. So all the major changes were made at the beginning. I did notice that there was an editorial change in comics when they mention something that happened in a previous issue. They will put a little box to tell you which issue it is in case you want to look it up. In the facsimile edition, it says last issue. But in the reprint issue, it states as seen in Spider-Man Annual number 12. Now, as I was going through this, I noticed some serious degradation in color. I'm going to show you a panel. If you could look at this panel where where Gwen Stacy is lying here. Notice the color of her skirt. It's almost completely faded. But in this one, not only is the sky a brighter purple, but look at her skirt and her hair. Everything about it just really pops. We're actually living in a golden age of comics because so many comic books are being reprinted in nice editions and they're readily available that way. And then we're getting these facsimile editions. As a collector of older comics, which I absolutely love and I won't stop, there really is a huge advantage to buying a comic in a more modern format. Now let's talk about why this issue is so iconic. It has the death of Gwen Stacy. And of course, that was used as a plot point in the Spider-Man films. One of the most important reasons that Spider-Man is an iconic character is because of all the tragedy in his life and this sense of him being an everyman. He struggles with poverty, trying to pay the bills, guilt over his uncle's death, which relates to the tragedy. Gwen's father died. He wasn't able to save him. And then Gwen Stacy dies. And so he's fueled by this tragedy. Another reason that this comic is important is because once Gwen is out of the way, that means Mary Jane can move in as his main girlfriend. I also want to point something else about the cover that's really interesting. When you look at the reprint, if you look down here, they removed this poor character from the cover so that they could put this box there. So the original had this character and the reprint didn't. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the reasons why this is iconic. Okay, that cover, it's kind of like a mystery. You know that when you open this comic book, someone in this book is going to be in danger, and it actually lives up to its promise. Someone actually does die in this book, a major character. So we got this initial splash page of Spider-Man looking in on his friend who is suffering through drug withdrawal. I love this panel. So here is the Green Goblin, and he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. However, he has amnesia and can't remember it. And so he's lurking and creeping up on him. He grabs him, and it's very uncomfortable for Peter, and it's uncomfortable for the audience, too. This creepy old man grabbing up on Peter in the stairwell. Here we got this cool original ad. You can look at this layout. Remember, this is the panel right here that was removed. Here we have an ad for the toy soldiers. I like this one. You can buy a cheap plastic vampire bat. It's only $1. Get your hip haircut. This is a great panel. Spidey swinging through the city. This is great. Spidey changing costume on the side of a building. Here we have Norman having visions of Spider-Man until he goes crazy. Interior art is by Gil Kane. The cover art is John Romita. You can see his signature there. And of course, John Romita just recently died. Here's a panel of Gwen Stacy not realizing that she is in danger. So now we got the iconic location for this epic fight, the George Washington Bridge. And the rest of the comic is going to take place at this bridge. Besides it being a really cool battle and having that, look at that hand. Here we go. The Green Goblin knocks Gwen Stacy off. We get this really cool long panel where we see Spidey up here, Gwen falling, and then we see how far she has to fall. And Spidey shoots his web, and he catches her, and he's relieved. But what you don't realize, if you don't read it carefully, you've got this little snap. And then he's pulling her back up. But if you notice that snap, you already know that she's dead. Now, reading this as a kid, this was emotionally impactful. Here is Spider-Man trying to revive Gwen. And then we end the issue with this very iconic panel. And we finally have the title of the issue, The Night Gwen Stacy Died. Oh, a couple more of the ads on the letter page. All right, so let's have a short discussion about why this is so important. Comic books for so many years were supposed to be about light things. In the early days, they were about murder and crime. Then throughout like the 60s, like Batman and Superman almost became jokey and playful. Here we have not only someone dealing with trying to make ends meet, dealing with guilt, grief. There's always the promise in comics of people being killed, but then saved last second. And so we expected Spider-Man to save Gwen Stacy. He did catch her with the web. And just think back on the TV shows of the superheroes of the 60s where Batman was always strapped up and there were all these like fiendish saws, but they always made it out in the end. It was almost a farce. But this comic really brought home tragedy. Peter Parker is going to have to deal with the grief of the loss of his girlfriend. He couldn't prevent the father's death. Now she dies. I think as a kid, these were all like really heavy things to deal with in a comic book. The creative teams on these books were pushing comics in new directions. They were doing bold things with their characters. These days, when a character is killed off, they can come back. It has no real emotional impact. I mean, look at what happened to Superman in the 90s. Supposedly, they killed him off. They had funerals for him. All the heroes gathered around, and boom, he was back again. It has no lasting emotional impact. But these comics really do have some heavy emotional resonance, especially if you're reading this as a child like I did. So I'm going to say that this comic is an absolute must. If you don't collect comics, you might want to think about stopping at your local comic book store and just picking up this one. It costs $3.99. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 121. The colors are bright, they pop, and you're going to be getting a piece of comic book history that was game-changing. I'm going to end by looking at this panel of Spidey caressing Gwen Stacy's lifeless body. Any comments are greatly appreciated. I want to thank you for the support. Oh, I also want to thank Larry's Library because he does single comic reviews. He gave me his blessing. If you would like me to review other key issues, then please let me know that in the comments.